Hi, my name's Leanna, and this morning at the School of Artisan Food I'm going to show you how to make a seasonal vegetable cake. Now I'm going to use courgettes, but you can use exactly the same recipe for carrots or squash or a number of different things you could put in. First thing I'm going to do is prepare my veg. So I've given this courgette a wash. I'm just going to take the top off and then I'm going to grate it. Now my vegetable cakes will have bits of green in them. If you don't want that, if you just peel your courgette, it'll have the same effect, but you won't get the colour. I like the colour, I think it improves it. It also adds a little bit of texture to the overall dish. Now I've got a small courgette here that was grown in our garden, and I want to grate it on the normal sort of cheese grating side of a grater. And I want to grate, probably I'm going to grate about 3/4 of this. With these cakes, you can be approximate as to how much of the veg you add. So if you don't like it as much, you can add a bit less, but it adds a really good texture. So the great thing about adding courgette or carrot or anything else into your cakes is it adds extra fibre, it adds a bit of extra vitamins, but the main thing is it adds a really nice moistness to the cake, so it gives it a really good texture. Right, I'm going to start grating there. So I've got about 3/4 of it, and I'm going to keep this to put in some burgers I'm making later. So that's going to one side, and I'm going to get out the courgette from inside my grater. When you're getting it from inside the grater, just be careful you don't stick your fingers through the holes, because obviously you will grate your fingers. And then again, if I'm going to take it from the outside here, don't ever push your hand the opposite against the grain. You can go the same way upside down with the grater, because that's not going to grate me. If I go the other way, I'm going to grate my hand. So once I've got my courgette done, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prep my other ingredients. We are making what's called an all-in-one cake today. So, as the name says, it's basically all in one, all in the same bowl. So into this bowl to begin with, and you can do these ingredients in any order, it doesn't really matter which order you put them in. So into my bowl, I'm going to add 180 grams of self-raising flour. You can just use plain flour and baking powder, but self-raising flour does make life a little bit easier because the rising agent, the baking powder, is already added to it. So I need to add in my 180 grams into there. And as our fat, we're using vegetable oil. Now you can use butter and melt it, that would work as well, or spread. I'm just using a rapeseed oil. You couldn't really use an olive oil because it'd have too much flavour, so you want a plain, neutral flavoured oil as we would describe it. So I need to add 80 millilitres, and millilitres and grams are about the same. So I'm going to add 80 millilitres of my oil into there. Just be careful, a bit at a time, because it does go up quite quickly when you're measuring liquids. You can measure it with spoons. The only problem with using a measuring jug is often measuring jugs don't go down past 100 millilitres, so it's a bit more of a guess. Whereas if you're using a scales, you can be super accurate. So I've got my oil, my flour, and I'm going to add to that my sugar. I've just got caster sugar, but you could use brown sugar, or you can even use granulated sugar. It wouldn't make a massive amount of difference in the cake. Granulated sugar is more likely to give you a crunchy texture to the top, but it doesn't make any difference. So I'm going to add 150 grams of my sugar to my mixture. Do be careful with how much sugar you add in. Sometimes people are tempted on recipes to change it and think, oh, I'm going to make it extra sweet and add more sugar. The problem with that is sugar boils, and if you've got the wrong amount of sugar compared to your other ingredients, what you will end up with is a burnt, sticky mess. So make sure you keep it all in the same quantities. So I've got my flour, my sugar, my oil. The last things I'm going to add are my eggs. I've got 2 eggs. If you're not confident with your eggs and you think you might get shell in, break it into something else first. It's always a good idea. You can use the back of a table knife, you can use the table, you can use the edge of the bowl. Just be really careful. Never use a sharp knife to crack your eggs, because if you slip, you're just going to stab yourself in the hand. So 1 swift, sharp movement through the egg, then put your thumbs in the hole and crack your egg into the bowl. With this cake mixture, I'm going to add in some cinnamon. Now you don't have to add cinnamon, it's just an extra flavour. You could add some vanilla, you could add a different spice, you could add ginger, whatever you like with your cakes, whichever flavours. I'm going to add just about a teaspoon of cinnamon in, and then I'm going to add in my courgette. That goes into there as well. Then all I'm going to do now is combine it all together, either using a spatula or a wooden spoon, until it comes together as a nice mixture. So it shouldn't be too dry, it should look like a cake mixture, it should be reasonably sticky. Then I'm going to use these tins here, which are just small. They're actually often used for brioche, like the tins I'm using today. But you could use a Bundt tin, which is like a round tin with a hole in the middle. You could use just a normal cake tin. You could make this in cake cases and make little muffins or cakes. So this mixture, it doesn't really matter what you cook it in. If it's a bigger cake that you're making, it will take slightly longer to cook. So just adjust your cooking times accordingly and have a check. So these ones here should take about 20 minutes to cook. So all I'm going to do is get my mixture and evenly distribute it between my cake cases, between my tins. And when I'm going to fill them about 3/4 of the way up, because they will rise. So if you are making muffins or you are making cake cases, you can fill them up, but don't go quite to the top, because if you do fill them all the way to the top, you might get them overflowing. So once I've got it into there, I'm then going to put them into the oven and bake them for approximately 20 minutes. But what I'm waiting for is, when I've baked them, I'm going to put a table knife or a skewer through the middle and make sure it comes out clean, and that's how I know they're baked. I'll show you the finished version once I've put them in the oven. My courgette cakes have just been in for just over 25 minutes, and I've just checked by putting a knife through the middle and it comes out clean. All I'm going to do with mine is I'm just going to cut off the top. Just be very careful because they are just out of the oven. Just cut off the top, and then I can then turn these out using some oven gloves very carefully. I can take off the case and put it onto a plate, which I've done with this one here. Now there's lots of different things you could top it. You could put some icing sugar on it, you could just leave it as it is. What I do like to do is a very small drizzle of honey over the top, just to finish it off. And there is my courgette cakes all completed.